Electoral Commission, Corneille Nangaa.
Proclamé provisoirement.
I hereby proclaim the provisional results. The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo is Mr. Tshisekedi Felix.
Supporters of Felix Tshisekedi have pitched camp outside their party headquarters celebrating.
Seek out, my friends, seek out everywhere. And no job, no everywhere. All of us who are here today to celebrate.
This is one victory that came straight from God, a descendant here.
But not everyone is celebrating. Opposition candidate Martin Fayulu won the Electoral Commission against declaring results that he said are not the reflection of the people's will.
We are saying to CENI, they cannot change the result of the poll. They cannot change what the Congolese have decided.
Candidates who are disputing the results have 2 days to file their petition at the Constitutional Court. The final results are scheduled to be announced after the court disposes of the cases. Chris Chamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Tshisekedi rode to victory on a party founded by his late father. CGTN's Will Kistanyabwa now looks at his political path.
Felix Tshisekedi represents Congo's oldest political party, which was founded by his father. Etienne Tshisekedi wa Mulumba was a famous opposition leader under then-President Mobutu Sese Seko. He was the leader of the Union for Democracy and Social Progress, the main opposing political party in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Etienne died in 2018 and his son inherited his party, and with it a chance of winning power. The son won the election under the Cape for Change coalition. The younger Tshisekedi was born in Kinshasa in 1963. He led a comfortable life in the capital. But when his father founded the Union for Democracy and Social Progress in the 1980s, he was forced into house arrest. He later moved to Brussels. In 2011, Tshisekedi obtained a seat in the DR Congo's National Assembly, but refused to take it up. 2 years later, he turned down the position of rapporteur at the Independent National Electoral Commission. In March 2018, he was chosen as the official UPDS presidential candidate in the general election. Critics say 55-year-old Tshisekedi is unproven, inexperienced, and lacks the charisma of his father. If confirmed, he will be the first opposition challenger to win the presidential election since the DR Congo gained independence 59 years ago. Will Kistanyabwa, CGTN.
Let's now get reactions from the African Union and the United Nations. Joining me from Addis Ababa is Coletta Wanjohi, and Liling Tan joins me from New York. Coletta, let's begin with you. What is the response from the African Union after the release of the DRC provisional election results?
Well, the African Union chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat has released a press statement saying that he remains cognizant of the fact that the Electoral Commission in the DRC has removed provisional results. Now, he has gone ahead to congratulate the people of DRC, saying that the elections were held in what he terms as satisfactory manner. But he's also quick to remind the people of DRC that there are laws of the land of DRC which is governed by a constitution, and this demands that whoever has grievances against the Electoral Commission's pronouncements should go according to the legal framework, which means they should go to the Constitutional Court, which has opened a window according to their constitution. It has opened a time during which those with grievances can air out and give evidence as to why they think the election results were not supposed to be as they are. And the African Union has also reminded the people of DRC, especially the political stakeholders during these elections, to make sure that they develop a ground where they can have political dialogue, which is very important, because peace in the DRC remains a great concern to the African Union. And the AU has also reminded the DRC that beyond the final results, I mean, regardless of who gets to win, the people of DRC should remember that there is a country to continue living in, and there is need to stay in peace, democracy, and also uphold human rights.
Liling, the United Nations has been pressuring the DRC to release the election results. Now that they are out, what are you hearing from the UN?
Yes, Peninah, as we know, the vote was supposed to take place 2 years ago, but there have been delays in the election and then the release of the results. And now we find the DRC at a turning point in history. very soon after the results came out, which was Wednesday night here in New York, the UN Secretary General issued a statement in which he called on all stakeholders to refrain from violence and direct any disputes through the proper channels and mechanisms in line with the country's constitution and electoral laws. Now, he also addressed directly the Electoral Commission, SANI, as well as the country's constitutional court, the political parties, the government and civil society, to urging them to live up to their responsibility in upholding stability and preserving the democratic practices. Now, the result of the elections, as we know, thrusts the country into a new era. And the UN Secretary General made a point to express the United Nations' continued support for the country and as it enters its transition. Peninah?
All right. So, Coletta, the influential Catholic Church has expressed disaffection with the DRC poll outcome. What measures can the EU take to ensure there is stability in the DRC in the coming days?
Well, the best, Peninah, that the African Union can do is keep urging the stakeholders to maintain peace and use the right means to express their grievances. But at the end of the day, we are likely to see the African Union through the SADC region, the Southern African region, of which DRC is a member. Because remember, the African Union works through regional economic blocs. So we are bound to see the SADC region making pronouncements. Maybe we're bound to see the SADC region sending several diplomatic missions to the DRC to talk to the stakeholders and all that. And depending on how the situation turns, if need be, we might see a special envoy from the African Union itself, which in most cases is usually a former president or someone who's got influence in the DRC, to ensure or to keep talking, because all we are going to see is just political dialogue and insistence that there be dialogue between the stakeholders. And also we are bound to see probably the African Union speaking to the neighbors of the DRC, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and encouraging them to have, if I may use the word, healthy pronouncements during this time, so, and to encourage the DRC to stay calm. Because if the DRC does not stay calm, then we are bound to see a cycle repeating itself, a cycle of protest or a cycle of violence within the DRC. So we might see the African Union working through different avenues.
All right. So, Lilian, how worried is the UN that the political temperatures in the DRC could spiral out of control?
Well, the UN is reasonably worried. We've heard from the Secretary General and we're still waiting to hear from the Security Council. Now, we know that the history up to this point has been fractious for the DRC, but the implication of the elections escapes no one here. We know that this is the first democratic transfer of power in nearly 60 years in the country, in the first era without President Joseph Kabila. Now, the UN chief has already warned against violence. The Security Council already met on Friday in closed-door consultations before the results were to come out, and they were supposed to meet earlier this week but postponed that meeting again. So they've been very careful about issuing formal consensus statements here to the press corps. However, the Security Council will be meeting in 24 hours on Friday here in New York to talk about the election results, but also address some of their concerns when it comes to the political and humanitarian fronts as well as the security front. We know that the mission, the UN mission to the DRC, MONUSCO, has been one of the more challenging and more dangerous deployments for the United Nations. So that will be addressed, how to move forward, how to help the process of transition in the country, how the mission can assist and support in its role there, but also beyond the security situation, there's also the humanitarian situation that has been of grave concern, the humanitarian crisis in the country, where the UN estimates 12.8 million people are facing food insecurity at a time when we're also seeing chronic cholera as well as outbreak of Ebola. So a lot of issues on the political, the security and the humanitarian situation will be addressed when the Security Council meets on Friday, and we'll have more of the sense of where this UN's strongest body stands on the DRC election results.
All right, Lillington in New York and Coletta Wanjohi in Addis Ababa, thank you both for joining us. Meanwhile, the European Union is repeating that it remains crucial official results reflect the will of the Congolese people. Our Europe correspondent Kevin Osbeck has more from Brussels.
Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders is one of those casting doubt on the results. He says the voting process has been chaotic and understands why election observer groups are questioning a win by Felix Tshisekedi. Right now, Belgium holds a temporary seat on the UN Security Council. Minister Reynders told Belgium news outlet RTBF that he will bring this up at the UN to seek answers on how Tshisekedi could have won. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian also has his doubts. He says it looks like the runner-up should have been declared the winner. Here at the European Commission, diplomats aren't going as far. They say they are still waiting to hear from more election observer groups in both the coming hours as well as the coming days. In the meantime, it's pleading for calm in the DRC.
We call all political actors in DRC to abstain from any kind of act of violence and allow for the democratic process to continue.
In the lead up to the election, the Kabila government ousted the EU's ambassador to the DRC. That was in retaliation for the EU slapping sanctions on Kabila's preferred candidate, Emmanuel Ramazan Shadary. Shadary is accused of helping to lead a brutal and deadly crackdown on the opposition. Kevin Osbeck, CGTN, Brussels.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Straight ahead. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visits Egypt as part of his Middle East tour. And why South Sudan wants all foreign nationals in the country to register themselves afresh.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Sky had a soft heart. And here, upstairs, she was very clever.
Sky is known a lot in here about the work that she's doing, showing the products of Lesotho and the cuisines of Lesotho.
Lesotho cuisine is not so sophisticated. We don't use a lot of spices and things like that. They're really simple flavors. I'm hoping that one day people will look back and still know those traditional Basotho dishes. And that's what I'm trying to achieve.
My home country lies at the foot of Africa, the southernmost tip of our beautiful continent, and the unique point at which two great oceans meet. Now on a clear day in Cape Town, you can just make out Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela was jailed for so long. South Africa has changed so much in the years since then, but it is this country's history that shaped me and took me into reporting. I'm inspired by Africa's men and women of courage. It's the everyday hero who brings out my passion. The creatives, the decision makers, the risk takers who are shaping a bright African future. I see them in Cape Town. I see them in the pulsating city of Johannesburg. I see them across the continent, and I know our time has come.
CGTN is a platform where African voices can speak for themselves and take their stories to the world. My name is Lindy Mtongana, and I'm a news anchor and reporter for CGTN.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has confirmed that the United States will be withdrawing its troops from Syria. Pompeo made the comment at a news conference in Cairo. That's following his meeting with both Egypt's president and foreign minister. The U.S. Secretary of State didn't mention any timeline within which the U.S. would be pulling out all of its troops, but President Donald Trump has stressed that America would not stop fighting ISIL militants in the region.
The threat from radical Islamic terrorism is real. ISIS continues. We fight them in many regions around the country. Our commitment to continuing to prevent Daesh growth, ISIS's growth, is real. It's important. We will continue at that. We're going to do it in a way in one particular place, Syria, differently. The United States decision, President Trump's decision to withdraw our troops has been made. We will do that. And so it is possible to hold in your head the thought that we would withdraw our forces, our uniformed forces from Syria and continue America's crushing campaign where we have taken down 99% of the caliphate in Syria and continue that. And we are intent upon that. And I've told each of the leaders here in the region that I've met that we're committed to that.
In Tunisia, the Interior Minister says security will be reinforced by the recruitment and training of 7,700 agents in 2019. The North African state is facing a permanent threat from the ISIL, Al-Qaeda and sleeper cells in the region. Authorities confirm that security has improved, but threats to national security remain high.
Tunisian Interior Minister announced that intelligence services, counter-terrorism units and National Guards have foiled an ISIL attempt to establish a so-called Islamic Emirate in the region of Zuma, Governorate of Sidi Bouzid.
The anticipatory counter-terrorist raid was successful. Some terrorists were neutralized while others were arrested. Arms and explosives were also seized during the operation. Security forces are ready to face any other terror threat.
Hisham al-Fourati declared before the Parliamentary Security and Defense Committee that a new security plan will be set up in Kasserine, near Algerian border. The strategy will be based on a unified command to combat terrorism. The minister also stressed that the new plan will be generalized in other border governorates, in particular in Jandouba and El-Kef.
This new security structure, a joint police National Guard force, will be dedicated only to fight against terrorism. This joint force will have a higher degree of freedom of initiative, and it is not required to refer to the National Territorial Command. Experts with the highest qualities have been chosen to lead this unit.
Experts believe that terrorist groups have changed their modus operandi. They are relying on dormant cells and are now using people with no police record.
Terrorist cells have adapted their strategy to murder the police, following the arrest or the killing of several key figures in sleeper cells. They rely on ordinary people, but intelligence services are aware of this scenario.
Fourati said that many Tunisians were arrested following their return from conflict zones in Syria, Iraq and Libya. The minister emphasized the importance of the close collaboration between the Tunisian security apparatus and their counterparts at the Arab and international levels. The Interior Minister approved the National Counter-Terrorism Commission's decision to freeze the funds and the economic resources of the terrorist organization Jund al-Khilafa, an Al-Qaeda branch in North Africa, as well as the assets of 40 people accused of terrorism. Some of these individuals belong to ISIL sleeper cells in Tunisia. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Nigeria will be holding elections in 6 weeks' time. Previous elections in Africa's most populous nation have been marred by fraud and voter rigging allegations, so a new voter card has been introduced. The permanent voter card, or PVC, is machine readable with enhanced security features expected to eliminate the risk of voter fraud. But there are concerns over whether voters will get hold of these cards in time. CGTN Samson Omale reports.
Over 8 million Nigerians have yet to pick up their permanent voter cards, or PVCs, which has officials worried.
If you have a massive number of people without their PVCs, it's certainly going to create a lot of confusion and a lot of it will impact on the election. The PVC is more important than your ATM.
In Plateau State, north central Nigeria, the voting population is about 4.5 million. At this collection center in the city of Jos, over 300,000 voters' cards are yet to be collected. For some, having a card means casting a real vote.
Actually, I'm feeling relief
and happy to have my PVC because now I can vote.
Okay, I've just collected my PVC and I intend voting the next governor and the next president for Nigeria.
But not all prospective voters are happy.
This is my first time I'm going to vote, but I'm not excited voting because with all the experience people have been telling me about, even if you vote, it's not that they count your votes.
For the past 6 months, I've been coming for my PVC card till date. I haven't gotten one. I mean, it's really, really frustrating. I've been here since morning.
Steve Aluko is a civil society activist and an election observer. He's worried voters will be slow to collect their voter ID cards, exposing the election to voter fraud and a sense their vote no longer counts.
It sure means that something is wrong about the voters' education. And it could also spell doom for the election. It could also lead to voters' apathy. Because people are not that enthusiastic to go and pick their voters' card. Then on the election proper, it gives room for manipulation.
Nigeria's Election Commission says it will do all it can to crack down on the buying and selling of votes.
Despite that pledge by election officials to tackle and defeat voter fraud, there's not much confidence in the system just 6 weeks away from Election Day.
All these comes as observers warn of pre-election violence. President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to face a stiff challenge from opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar in the presidential elections in February. Samson Omale, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
In South Sudan, the government says it wants all foreign nationals living in the country to register within the next 3 months. Juba says the process will help create a database and help combat transnational crime. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's Interior Ministry says foreign nationals living in the country must now have valid visas and those in employment should also acquire work permits. Juba is screening all foreigners in the country. Those with valid documents are having their papers verified, while those without any documents are being asked to legalize their stay.
We are not targeting anybody, and we are not going to use any force with them. We are telling them to come alone to register.
Immigrants in South Sudan are mainly from East African countries like Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia and Eritrea. Many of them are either traders or work in hospitality. All traders are now required to obtain valid trading licenses, which has led some foreign nationals to begin the registration process.
I have seen the process which we are doing is not all that hard. I say the staff, because it's something you have to go with the procedure. I come, you collect the form, you fill the form with the details of the passport, with the details of the person. After that, then you have to come, you give to the authorities.
However, there are those who are concerned that the price of a work permit in the country is too high. The government here has set the price of work permit at between $500 for unskilled workers to $4,000 for consultants and managers. It's a fee that will need to be paid on a yearly basis, which is likely to have a big impact on those working and settling in the country. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
On to Egypt now. The country's president has launched an aid initiative that will extend throughout 2019. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has named the program A Decent Life. The initiative aims to empower the underprivileged and cover their basic needs. CGTN's Adel Mahroui tells us more.
Naming the Egyptian citizen the hero of 2018 for sustaining with the economic burdens, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi announced an initiative called A Decent Life. The new aid program aims to reach out to the neediest segment of society and help them overcome challenges to cover their basic needs.
The decent life that the president refers to starts with decent housing. Citizens must find an affordable home to live in. The second aspect is to reach out to the people living in the villages. They are in desperate need of health services. There is also a plan to help out orphans to get married.
The Ministry of Social Solidarity provides monthly financial aid for some 12 million Egyptians. In addition, the government provides food stamps and partial power subsidies. Egypt pays around $14 billion annually to fund these services.
We are trying to complement the current aid programs and expand the initiative's outreach. We have a health campaign targeting hepatitis C and other non-communicable diseases. A Decent Life will also target other health issues.
The government is currently holding a quick demographic scan to refine the database of the poorest 32 million Egyptians. Decent Life will start with the most 100 underprivileged villages, which poverty rates are at more than 70%. Aiming to achieve the highest assistance efficiency, the Ministry of Social Solidarity has been holding planning meetings with the biggest 15 NGOs to coordinate their plan of action.
The initiative is pushing the government, the economic establishments and the civil society to coordinate efforts of engaging with public assistance. The NGOs and the government agreed to divide the program into two main kinds of services.
Decent Life aims to create more jobs through offering loans and opportunities for citizens to start their micro-enterprises. By fulfilling the basic needs of the poorest segment of society, Egypt is hoping a decent life would decrease their reliance on the government. Cairo believes the initiative will help speed up its economic development plan. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's recap our top stories this hour. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the head of the Electoral Commission has declared opposition candidate Felix Tshisekedi as the winner of the December presidential poll. The European Union once again says it remains crucial that official results reflect the will of the Congolese people. In South Sudan, the government says it wants all foreign nationals living in the country to register within the next 3 months. Juba is screening all foreigners in the country. Those with valid documents are having their papers verified, while those without any documents are being asked to legalize their stay. In Tunisia, the Interior Minister says security will be reinforced by the recruitment and training of 7,700 agents in 2019. The North African state is facing a permanent threat from the ISIL, Al-Qaeda and sleeper cells in the region. And the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has confirmed that the United States will be withdrawing its troops from Syria. Pompeo made the comment at a news conference in Cairo. That's following his meeting with both Egypt's president and foreign minister. And that's a look at our top stories this hour. And it's time now for business news with Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in business. Doctors in Zimbabwe have ended their 6-week strike as they await a deal on pay increases. And maritime officials are suspended in Tunisia for causing a cargo ship collision.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back. Doctors in Zimbabwe have ended a 6-week-long strike, bringing some measure of relief to President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government. Authorities in Zimbabwe, though, are facing growing labour unrest as inflation rises, hard currency shortages persist, and the bond note quasi-currency sharply devalues. CGTN's Farai Makutuya has the details.
Doctors are back in the wards after getting commitments to improve their working conditions while salary negotiations continue. They, along with teachers and nurses, say their static wages have been outstripped by a rapidly increasing cost of living and are ramping up pressure on the government.
It's the third day of a new school term, but these rural teachers haven't attended any lessons. Instead, they've been camped here outside the Ministry of Finance office, where they vowed to stay until their demand to be paid in US dollars has been met.
To try to pacify the rest of employees, government has brought forward their January pay dates, but may need to do more to quell the discontent.
The economy needs to be dollarized. For me, it's inevitable. Secondly, we need to have a rollout situation where the bond note is taken off the market completely. It's not doing us any good. And thirdly, a social contract is needed between labor, between employers and government.
Recent negotiations ended in a stalemate because unions say government isn't being transparent.
No one is giving explanation. People are reading these things in the media. No one is coming openly to say government is unable to raise enough forex to pay its strong workforce in foreign currency. The foreign currency government is getting is earmarked for fuel, for electricity. No one is explaining that. You'll be surprised that once you explain this to the people, people will understand that the government has got no money.
The cash-strapped administration is in a bid to attract foreign capital, but the ongoing challenges could deal its charm offensive a blow on the chin.
No one is going to put money in a country where people spend 8 hours looking for fuel. Someone is putting a notice, wants to go on strike. Someone is demanding forex. Someone is complaining that this government is not consulting.
With inflation at a 10-year high and cash, fuel and some basic commodities in short supply, Zimbabwe is experiencing its worst economic crisis since 2008. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And that strife is simply not coming to an end. Zimbabwe civil servants have issued a formal strike notice. They've given the government 14 days to meet their wage demands. Zimbabwe's public workforce said that their action has been prompted by their employers' failure to address their plight. They're demanding improved salaries, allowances and housing benefits too. Most civil servants take home an average monthly wage of about $350 and they're finding it pretty hard to make ends meet. Last year, just before the elections in July, President Mnangagwa's administration awarded soldiers a 22.5% pay hike. Police officers saw their pay go up by 20%. Teachers and other civil servants got a 17.5% rise in their salaries, but those wage hikes have been wiped out by inflation. On to North Africa now, Tunisia to be specific. A commission of inquiry with multiple nations in it has attributed the cause of a collision between a Tunisian ship and a Cypriot container ship to human error. That crash occurred 28 kilometers north of Cape Corsica in 2018 and it caused an oil spill in the Mediterranean. Tunisian authorities say repairs, compensation and losses will cost millions of dollars.
The Commission of International Experts formed to investigate the collision between the CTN's Ro-Ro ship, Ulysse, and the Cypriot container ship, CSL Virginia, in October 2018, found that a common human error was behind the collision.
ضابط الملاحة
The navigation officer and CLS Virginia captains were busy on the phone at the time of the accident. The Tunisian officer did not pay attention to the alert from the Cypriot container that was stationed north of the Cape of Corsica in France, as he was busy on the chart room while the other officer was on the check mission.
The Director General of Maritime Transport and Trade Ports added that the losses linked to the Ulysse ship accident are estimated at $8,000 per day. Tunisian maritime authorities will now open tenders through the local procurement system to pick a company that will undertake repairs on the ship.
The ship has been out of service for the past 3 months. It will resume activities in June or July of 2019. The repair costs have reached $12 million and could increase. Insurers on the Ulysses ship will bear the compensation costs, but it will be very expensive.
Tunisian navigation company CGTN has suspended the 3 sailors who posted a video on social media after the incident from duty, as they await a court verdict.
The CGTN also took disciplinary action against the contract officer, terminating his engagement, as well as that of the watch officer and the officer who steered the vessel from midnight to 4 a.m. These officers and sailors have damaged the reputation of the Tunisian shipping company.
The Director General of Maritime Transport said the insurance companies and the Protection and Indemnity Club will pay for the repairs of both ships and the reimbursement of the cost of cleaning of the polluted coasts and beaches in France as a result of fuel spill from the Cypriot ship.
Now, a judge in South Africa has ruled that the arrest of Mozambique's former finance minister was entirely valid. Manuel Chang was arrested in Johannesburg on the 29th of December on an arrest warrant issued in the United States in connection with a $2 billion loan scandal. His lawyers argued that the arrest was unlawful, but the judge presiding over the case rejected their arguments. The indictment alleges that Chang and others violated U.S. anti-corruption laws in a scandal that plunged Mozambique into a financial crisis. The defense now hopes to secure bail for Manuel Chang. And in South Africa, the country's business confidence index fell by 0.9 points in December from a reading of 96.1 in November 2018. Business confidence does remain at a relatively moderate level, at least in 2018, after rising fairly sharply earlier in the year, after Cyril Ramaphosa became the country's president following the resignation of Jacob Zuma.
I think we could say that we're on the average for the year as such. We start very high at about close to 100, the index. And then it came down to about 95 towards year end. And I think it's moderate and it actually reflects the difficulty of getting the economy going again, and actually to get the business climate more positive, especially on investment and on business confidence.
And we'll be diving into those numbers in a bit more detail live from Johannesburg a little later. Right now, though, here's what's coming up in global business. Tanzania's president has ordered the central bank to buy gold. But are we looking at a preview here to the nationalization of the country's mining sector? We'll look at that and plenty more for you at 1800 GMT on Global Business Africa. For now, though, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead, we look at the musical prospects of former South African President Jacob Zuma.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Peninah, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma is set to become a recording artist after reaching an agreement with a local municipality to record popular struggle songs. The move, which is part of ensuring the preservation of heritage, will see the former president starting a new career in music. CGTN Zulis and Jamila has more.
Former President Jacob Zuma is known for his singing prowess. Be it political rallies, funerals or struggle stalwarts, and other events, he often leads in song. Well, he's now officially signed a recording deal. The recording deal was authorized after officials in eThekwini, which is part of Zuma's native province of KwaZulu-Natal and comprises his political base, realized that no archives existed of the liberation songs from the anti-apartheid struggle period.
Before 1994, the history, especially of black people, was either castigated as useless or seen as backward, and therefore it was not kept at all. But that should be understood because South Africa was founded mainly on the basis of racial contradictions. Race here was the main paradigm that was used by government then.
Ngobo revealed that this surprise move would form part of the Metropole's drive to preserve heritage. They believe an album of anti-apartheid music, as sung by a man who returned from exile to eventually lead South Africa, is the best way to do this.
We have been to various public institutions, including broadcasters, to look for materials, especially that relating to the struggles that were waged by black people before 1994, and we could not find them.
So we asked them why they chose the former president instead of perhaps empowering young upcoming artists.
When we come up with these songs and we ask young people, very well-established artists today, to sing these songs, you will find that yes, they are very good singers, but they don't sing them with that gusto. There is no spirit attached to it because they don't understand the context and they were not necessarily part of it.
The move has been criticized as blatant patronage, where people's money will be used, but Ngombo dismisses this. He says Zuma will not earn a fee for recording the struggle songs.
These songs, they will talk about our struggles and remind us that we have not completed the struggles that were started way back in 1912 when the African National Congress was formed and later on other black organizations.
Since the announcement was made that the former president will be recording an album, a number of artists have reportedly shown interest in collaborating with him.
Oh yes, we are still even receiving up to now. People are approaching us. They want to make different types of contributions. For instance, Ladysmith Black Mambazo, a group that is internationally known, they called and said, hey, we heard about this project. We would like to make a contribution and make available our studios to you for free.
South Africans have varying views on this matter.
I think he's going to be really good, to be honest, because if you look back to the political rallies, he was really good. He was really good. He had that enthusiasm that people usually have for struggle songs.
Msholozi will definitely going to succeed in this. In fact, I believe in him a lot.
I think he does enough singing right now. He should focus on his dancing career. That looks a lot more lucrative.
He's an artist. But with our money, hey, Angaz, I don't know.
Not with our money.
You should, you know? Nah, no, not with our money though. As tax-paying people, no.
Yes.
No.
I totally agree. He should continue on the side without us being involved, because us paying is like we involved again, and it's like no.
The project is expected to commence in April. Yudison Jamela for CGTN in Durban, South Africa.
And still in South Africa, a new video game is taking on the world by storm and is being downloaded by tens of thousands of gamers across the globe. The video game known as Semblance was first developed as a university project by developers Sukia Kimani and Ben Myers. Here's their story.
Suki Akimani and Ben Myers met while they were both studying game development. Their popular game, known as Semblance, features great designs, music and unique mental challenges. The duo now run a company and studio called Nyama Kop.
So it's something where the technology that I was building and Ben's designs put together start to create something new and fresh. And then we were always trying to do things that were differently. So even the music that was being done in South Africa, in Cape Town, we were always pushing the boundaries.
So what I spoke about was just like hustle, pretty much. Like hustle as this idea is like everywhere in Africa. And so I was just teaching about how you can like overcome the disadvantages we have being in South Africa making games and use it to your advantage.
The developers have traveled all over the world to showcase Semblance at prestigious gaming events.
I think I like the fact that these are South Africans that are making these games, and it's not big name brands. It's actual like guys that are starting out in the industry, and it's cool.
But it's good. It stimulates your brain to think.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
You're playing games and as well as thinking at the same time.
It's not like you're a couch potato, you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
Because you always say like, oh, you sit and play games and you're like brain dead, but you're not.
Semblance launched for purchase in July 2018 and is now available on PC, Mac and Nintendo Switch.
So it's good to see that there's a great interest into people trying to find out what's happening in Africa in video games, because we're making it hot. We're making it hot.
The founders say their next move is to join African digital storytellers that are using games to explore the continent's folklore.
There's an opportunity now for African creatives, African developers to start sharing games and stories that the world hasn't seen before. And I think that's one of the key sort of selling points that we can really offer sort of the international markets.
Revenue from the gaming industry in South Africa hit $118 million last year, and games like Semblance are getting international publishers and investors to take notice of developers in Africa. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.